how many skeletal muscles in the human body? John?
Let's see, about 300? But the number can change, though, can't it? I mean,
What are you going to... Would you like to play...
the fossils housing service. We've been talking. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jane.
I've just finished registration.
How many courses are you taking this semester?
Altogether, four courses. I signed up for Advanced Spanish, South American History, Mexican Art and Culture, and Programming 1.
Why Computer Programming 1? I thought you were a history major.
Well, yes, I am. But I'm very interested in computers, too. My parents gave me their old computer 3 months ago. I'm just beginning to learn some of the basic programs. It's fascinating. Won't hurt to have more credits, even though the course is only 3 credit hours.
I know, it's no Mickey Mouse course. I took the course last semester. I barely made it. I got a C. I've been using a computer for the last 2 or 3 years for word processing. But when it comes to programming, it's just over my head. But then again, you can use it without knowing how it works, just like driving. I even use a laptop computer in class sometimes.
Still, just as knowing how an automobile works makes you a better driver, knowing something about programming makes you better at using a computer. Nevertheless, I'm a little anxious about the course.
I understand, but you'll do fine. In any case, you can drop it if you find it too difficult. Well, good luck in the course.
Hi, Jane. We finished talking about the defeat of France by Prussia in 1871 and the Paris Commune, and we've already heard that political balance within the former nation began to fall apart after 1871, and that the death of Leon Gambetta in 1882 killed any chance for real political consensus in the country. And now we will move on to the so-called Dreyfus Affair, which illustrates how far political polarization had gone in the country. On October 15, 1894, Alfred Dreyfus, a captain on the French General Staff, was placed under arrest for high treason. After some weeks, Dreyfus was found guilty in a secret military trial full of legal irregularities. And a few days later, on January 5, 1895, he was deprived of his rank and sent for life to Devil's Island in French Guiana. The conviction was based primarily on documents found in the wastepaper basket of a German military attaché. The acrimony aroused by the case was to a large extent due to anti-Semitism, which was often related to Catholic, reactionary, and anti-Republican feelings. A Republican and a Jew, Dreyfus had been an outsider among the aristocratic, Catholic, and monarchist officers of the French General Staff. Therefore, his fellow officers were easily convinced to incriminate him. Naturally, as the reasoning went, if there was a traitor among them, it could only be Dreyfus. So, even though his family, by the way, he came from a wealthy Alsatian family. In any case, even though his family, especially his brother Matthew, made every effort to obtain a new trial, and some journalists came to Dreyfus's defense, for a long while, no one could make any headway. Well, in the following year, the counterintelligence section of the French General Staff received a new chief, Colonel Georges Paccard. This Colonel Paccard, a whistleblower in the intelligence service, noticed that the removal of Dreyfus had not ended the leakage of military secrets. He also became aware that the handwriting on the incriminating documents was similar to that of another member of the General Staff, Count Esterhazy. On top of that, Esterhazy happened to be in continual financial difficulties. The plot thickens, doesn't it? As we will see, Paccard is the real hero of our story here. Well, when Paccard insisted on proceeding against Esterhazy, nobody on the General Staff was willing to listen to him, and he was summarily transferred from Paris to Tunis in Africa. But before leaving Paris, he confidentially informed several people of Esterhazy, including the Vice President of the Senate. Shortly thereafter, two sides emerged on the issue, the pro and the anti-Dreyfus. The pro-Dreyfus, called Dreyfusards, were Jewish, Protestant, anti-clericals, and liberals, and among them were the novelists Anatole France, Émile Zola, and Georges Clemenceau, the liberal politician, journalist, and later premier. Interestingly enough, the socialists were reluctant supporters of Dreyfus because the socialist leaders doubted that their adherents, the workers, perceived a connection between their own own interests and the cause of a wealthy Jewish officer. On the other side were the anti-Dreyfusards, Catholics, monarchists, anti-Semites, veterans of 1871, frustrated nationalists, and many rural elements. Of course, there was money involved in the whole thing too, as you may suspect. In particular, what further fueled the hostility was the 1885 failure of a Roman Catholic banking firm, for which its Jewish rivals, including the Rothschilds, with their superior resources and shrewdness, were blamed. In order to quell once and for all the agitation for Dreyfus, the French army ordered a trial of Esterhazy, and lo and behold, he was acquitted. And here is our hero again. Picard, one of the witnesses against Esterhazy, was arrested and imprisoned. But rest assured, not all in vain. This whole arbitrary procedure provoked one of the great political documents of modern times, j'accuse, which means I accuse. In this open letter, addressed to the President of the Republic, published in 1898 in Clemenceau's newspaper, Émile Zola stated the case against the army leaders briefly and succinctly. He singled out the responsible officers by name and devoted to each one of them a single paragraph beginning j'accuse. Rightly expecting that he too would be condemned, Zola fled to London, where he continued to fight. Under these circumstances, the highest court of appeals set aside the previous condemnation of Dreyfus, and a new trial date was set. On June 22, 1899, however, the new trial culminated in a bizarre verdict that confirmed Dreyfus's guilt, but at the same time pardoned him by conceding him extenuating circumstances. Still, in September of that year, Dreyfus accepted a pardon from the President of France. This brought his immediate release, although it implied a tacit admission of guilt. As a matter of fact, it took 7 more years, until 1906, before Dreyfus was finally exonerated of the charges and readmitted into the army. Incidentally, afterward, he fought at the Western Front during World War I. All this is a thing of the past? Hardly. The factions in the Dreyfus affair remained in place for decades in its aftermath. As a result of the affair, the political right acquired an ideology, and the left received a new sense of direction. The liberal victory played an important role in prompting liberal legislation, such as a 1905 enactment separating church and state. The anti-Dreyfusards have, on the other hand, remained a potent coalition, endured to the present time as well. Even now, his statues and monuments are occasionally vandalized by far-right activists. Most importantly, the Dreyfus affair was symbolic of a whole series of unanswered questions in French society. Republic or monarchy? Catholic or secular? Liberal or authoritarian? These issues remained unsolved not just during World War I, but also during World War II, when, under Nazi auspices, the ghost of the anti-Dreyfusard movement was raised from the dead and placed in power. What is this resurrected ghost? Anyone? Yes.
The Vichy government?
Precisely. As you all must know from reading James Hall's article, this week's reading assignment, the right-wing Vichy regime was composed mostly of old anti-Dreyfusards or their descendants. The more things changed, the more they remained the same, as the French writer Alphonse Carr said. Well, that's why we're doing what we're doing here, after all, isn't it, folks? Well, this is as good as any point to segue into British reactions to this whole incident. Before we wrap up for today, I'd like to touch on the affair's influence across the channel. We've finished talking...